I always believed I knew everything about my family. My late husband, Robert, was a good man. My son, Michael, grew up kind and responsible. And my daughter-in-law, Lauren, though quiet and distant, was someone I had learned to accept as part of our family. But that all changed the day I went into their basement to help clean before their move. The basement was cluttered with boxes, full of dust and memories. Old toys, photo albums, furniture we had nearly forgotten. As I wiped my hands and moved a box labeled winter decorations, I saw something tucked away behind it. A smaller box, taped shut, with neat handwriting across the top. It said, "For my mother." At first, I smiled, thinking Lauren had packed something sentimental for her own mother. But when I looked closer, my smile faded. There, faintly written under the label, almost as if it had been erased, was my name, Mary. My heart gave a strange little jump. I wasn't sure what to think. I picked it up. It wasn't very heavy, just a small brown box covered in dust. Maybe it was a gift Lauren had forgotten about. Maybe something from Michael. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I slowly peeled the tape and lifted the lid. Inside was a folded blue cloth, a small gold locket, and a thick envelope sealed with red wax. The moment I saw the handwriting on it, my breath caught in my throat. It was Robert's, my husband's handwriting, the same loops, the same careful strokes. On the front, it said, "To my mother, when you're ready to forgive me." My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, yellowed with age. It was a marriage certificate, listing Robert Thompson and Mary Thompson. My name, my husband's name, but something wasn't right. The date was wrong, 2 years earlier than when we were actually married. I read it twice, thinking it had to be a mistake, but there it was. A document that said I had been married to my husband before I actually was. As I stood there frozen, I heard footsteps upstairs. Lauren's voice called down, "Mary, are you still down there?" I swallowed hard and called back, "Yes, I found a box down here, one that says, 'For my mother.'" There was a pause. Then her tone changed, sharper, nervous. "You weren't supposed to see that." Something in her voice made my stomach twist. She didn't sound embarrassed or caught off guard. She sounded afraid. I looked down at the paper again, the familiar names printed in black ink, my name staring back at me. Nothing in that basement made sense anymore. Why would Lauren have a marriage certificate with my name on it and my late husband's? Dated years before we were actually married. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my family started to fall apart. If you're watching this, make sure to subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because what happened next revealed a secret my husband never meant for me to find. Before that day in the basement, my life felt simple and settled. I had lost my husband 5 years earlier, but I was finally beginning to find peace again. Robert had been my partner for nearly 40 years. He was steady, hardworking, and quiet, the kind of man who spoke more through action than words. I missed him every single day, but I held on to the comfort that he had loved me, and that our marriage, though ordinary, had been honest. After his death, my world revolved around our son, Michael, and his family. Michael had always been my pride, thoughtful, respectful, and a good father to his little boy, Ethan. I tried not to intrude too much, but they often invited me for dinner. I cooked on holidays, babysat when they needed, and helped keep the house running. Lauren, my daughter-in-law, had always been polite, but distant. She spoke carefully, like every word was measured. She wasn't cruel, but she had a way of making me feel like I didn't quite belong. When I offered help, she'd smile and say, "Thank you, but I've got it handled." So I stayed out of the way. But I had noticed things. The way she kept certain doors locked, how she'd rush to take calls in private, or how Michael's voice changed whenever they argued behind closed doors. They said it was stress from work, but deep down, I sensed something heavier hanging in that house. When Lauren mentioned they were planning to move to another city for Michael's job, I offered to help clean out the basement. She hesitated for a moment before saying yes, like she wanted to protest but couldn't find a reason. That hesitation stuck with me. The morning I went down there, the air was heavy with the smell of old cardboard and dust. Sunlight barely reached through the small basement windows, making everything look a little gray. As I sorted through old boxes, I came across old Christmas decorations, family photos, even Robert's old army medals that Michael must have taken when I gave them away years ago. It made me smile, until I found that small brown box. At first, I thought maybe it was something meant for me. The neat label, the way it was carefully tucked behind everything else, made it feel deliberate. But when I saw that marriage certificate inside, something broke inside me. It wasn't just confusion. It was fear. Fear that maybe Robert had hidden something from me all those years. Fear that Lauren knew what it was. And most of all, fear that my son had known too. When Lauren came down and saw me holding the certificate, she froze halfway on the stairs. Her face drained of color. "Where did you get that?" she asked quietly. "In this box," I said, holding it up. "It says, for my mother." "Why would you have this, Lauren? Why is my name on it?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes darted to the paper, then to the box, then back to me. "You weren't supposed to see that," she repeated, her voice sharper now. "Please put it back, Mary. It's not what you think." But the more she spoke, the more my chest tightened. "Then what is it?" I asked. She didn't reply. She just turned and walked upstairs, leaving me alone in that basement, staring down at a piece of paper that had the power to rewrite my entire life. I didn't know it yet, but that one discovery, that single piece of paper, was about to unravel a secret buried deeper than I ever imagined. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that marriage certificate, my name written neatly beside Robert's. The date stamped clearly 2 years before we were actually married. I turned it over again and again, hoping to find something that would explain it. But all it did was raise more questions. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. It wasn't possible. How could a document like this exist? Why was it hidden in my son's basement? And why did Lauren react the way she did, like she'd been caught doing something terrible? The next morning, I decided to confront her. I waited until Michael left for work and knocked on their door. Lauren opened it with that same polite smile she always wore, but the second she saw me, the color drained from her face. I was still holding the brown box in my hands. "Lauren, we need to talk," I said quietly. "Now." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Of course. Come in." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we had shared countless Sunday dinners, the same table where I used to watch her feed my grandson pancakes with a sweet smile that now felt like a lie. I placed the certificate in front of her. "What is this?" She stared at it, her fingers twitching slightly before she folded her hands. "Where did you find that?" "In the basement," I said, "in a box labeled for my mother." "Why was it down there, Lauren? And why does this paper say that Robert and I were married 2 years before we actually were?" Her jaw tightened. "You shouldn't have opened it," she said softly. "That box wasn't meant for you." I leaned forward. "It has my name on it. Who else would it be for?" She looked away, her voice low. "It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone." My pulse quickened. "Then tell me what it is." She sighed, her tone shifting from nervous to defensive. "It's just an old document your husband had. Maybe he got the date wrong. Maybe he started the paperwork before your wedding." I shook my head firmly. "No, Robert was meticulous. He would never get a date wrong on something like this. And if it was just a mistake, why hide it? Why lock it away in a box and label it like that?" Lauren pressed her lips together. "Because he didn't want you to find it." The room felt colder suddenly. "And you did," I said quietly. "You found it after he died." She didn't answer. I stood up, trying to steady my breathing. "Lauren, I've been nothing but kind to you. I've welcomed you into this family, treated you like my own daughter. If there's something you know about my husband, you tell me now." She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were wet, but not with sadness, with something closer to guilt. "You don't want to know, Mary." "Yes," I said, my voice shaking. "I do." Lauren took a deep breath. "When we were cleaning out Robert's office after he passed, Michael asked me to organize his files. I found that box inside an old trunk. There were letters, photos, and that certificate. I asked him about it, and he said to throw it away, but I couldn't." "Why not?" "Because," she said, her voice cracking slightly, "there was another document with it, a note. It was addressed to you." My heart thudded. Where is it? I burned it. Her words hit me like a slap. You did what? She looked down. It wasn't my place to let you see it. Robert wrote things that would have broken you, things that should have stayed buried with him. I gripped the edge of the table, my legs trembling. You had no right. I was trying to protect Michael, she snapped suddenly. You think he needs to hear that his father wasn't the man he believed he was, that he might have had another life before you? I froze. Another life? Her expression faltered. She realized she'd said too much. I leaned closer, my voice firm. What do you mean, another life? Lauren looked terrified. I don't know everything. I just know there was someone before you, a woman, maybe even another marriage. The certificate might have been part of that, but Robert changed it, changed the name. I stepped back, my breath coming faster. Changed it to mine? She nodded slightly, tears forming. He must have wanted to erase her. The world around me blurred. My knees nearly gave out. Robert, my Robert, had always been so calm, so steady, so honest. The thought that he might have married someone before me and then hidden it felt impossible. I don't believe you, I whispered. You're lying. Lauren's voice was barely audible. I wish I was. I left the house without another word. I could barely see through the tears that burned in my eyes. My mind spun between anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Why hadn't he told me? Who was that woman? And why did Lauren know all of this but never say a word? That night, I sat alone in my living room staring at old photo albums. Every picture of Robert smiling suddenly looked different. Every small memory felt tainted by the possibility that I'd never really known him at all. But beneath the pain, a spark of determination lit inside me. Lauren might have burned that note, but she hadn't erased everything. Somewhere, the truth still existed, and I was going to find it, no matter what it cost me. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest, but also a strange clarity. For years, I had been the kind of woman who avoided confrontation, who believed silence kept peace. But not anymore. Lauren had burned a letter that belonged to me. She had buried the truth, and my husband's memory was tangled in her lies. I needed answers. I started where it all began, in the basement. When I arrived at Michael's house, Lauren wasn't home. She was at work, and Michael was dropping Ethan off at school. I told myself I was just finishing up the cleaning, but I knew that wasn't true. I was there to find what she'd tried to hide. The basement was quiet, the same smell of dust and dampness lingering in the air. I turned on the old hanging light bulb and began searching through every box I hadn't opened before. My hands trembled with each lid I lifted, half hoping I wouldn't find anything, half hoping I would. Then, behind a stack of paint cans, I found it. An old wooden chest with a brass latch. It looked out of place, too old to belong to Michael and Lauren. My heart started to race. I pulled it forward, wiped off the dust, and noticed faint initials carved into the top. R.T. Robert Thompson, my husband's initials. I swallowed hard and opened it. Inside were photographs, letters and folders tied neatly with twine. The smell of aged paper filled the air. I carefully untied the stack and began reading. The first letter was addressed to Elaine. The name made my stomach tighten. Lauren's mother's name was Elaine. The handwriting was unmistakably Robert. Elaine, I can't do this anymore. I tried to make it work, but I can't marry you. I'm sorry for the pain this will cause, but I don't love you the way I thought I did. The letter was dated 1984, 2 years before Robert and I married, the same year printed on the fake marriage certificate. I flipped through more letters. Most were short, strained. It became clear that Robert and Elaine had been engaged, but after he ended it, she must have taken his words and her heartbreak and turned it into something darker. One envelope caught my attention. Inside was a photograph. Robert and Elaine standing together outside what looked like a courthouse, smiling faintly. The back of the photo read, "For my mother, the day everything changed." My pulse quickened. I flipped through the remaining papers and found another envelope, thicker, with my name written in Robert's handwriting. "To Mary, if you ever need to know." For a long moment I couldn't move. My throat tightened, my hands shook, and my eyes filled with tears. He had written this for me, maybe knowing that someday I might find it. I took a deep breath and opened the letter. "Mary, I need you to know the truth in case it ever finds you before I can tell you myself. Before I met you, I was engaged to Elaine. She was kind once, but her love turned into something controlling. When I ended things, she refused to let go. She created a marriage certificate with her name replaced by yours, a reminder of what she thought I stole from her, the life she wanted. I didn't destroy it because I didn't want Michael to know what kind of resentment still lived in this family. I wanted to protect him and you. If you ever find this, please believe me when I say you are the only woman I ever truly married and the only one I ever loved. Tears fell onto the page as I read his words over and over again. My heart felt both shattered and mended at once. He hadn't betrayed me. He had been trying to protect me. Suddenly, I heard the door creak upstairs. Footsteps followed. I quickly folded the letter and tucked it into my purse. Lauren's voice echoed down the stairs. "Mary, are you here again?" Her tone was sharp, irritated. I wiped my tears quickly and tried to steady my voice. "Yes, I thought I'd finish up what I started." She came down the stairs slowly, her eyes darting around. When she saw the open chest, her face drained of color. "What are you doing with that?" she demanded. "I think the better question," I said calmly, "is why this was buried behind a pile of junk." She stepped closer, her jaw tightening. "You shouldn't have touched that." "I think I had every right to," I replied, "especially since it's filled with letters from my husband, and one from him to me." Her composure cracked. "You found it?" "Yes," I said firmly, "and now I understand everything. Your mother never accepted that Robert chose me. She made that fake certificate and gave it to you, didn't she? You knew what it was." Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. I could see the guilt written all over her face. "Finally," she whispered, "my mother told me it was real. She said your husband ruined her life. Your mother lied," I said softly, "and you let her bitterness live through you." Lauren's eyes filled with tears, but there was anger too. "You think it's that simple? She died believing that man destroyed her future. I wanted you to know what she went through." I took a slow breath, holding her gaze. "And in doing that, you tried to destroy mine." She looked away, ashamed. I could tell she wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. I stood, walked past her, and paused at the stairs. "Lauren, the past doesn't heal when you hurt someone new. It just keeps the pain alive." Her voice broke as she said, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I didn't look back. I just said quietly, "It already did." That night I went home, placed Robert's letter on my nightstand, and sat in silence. For the first time in days, I felt peace. The truth had found me, not to break me, but to set me free. The next day, I woke up with one clear decision. I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. For years, my husband's name, my own reputation, and even my family's peace had been tainted by secrets that were never mine to carry. It was time to bring everything into the open, no matter the cost. That evening, I called Michael and asked him and Lauren to come over. My voice was calm, but there was a finality in my tone that even Michael noticed. "It's important," I said. "It's about your father." When they arrived, the air in my living room felt heavy, almost electric. Michael sat beside me on the couch, his expression worried, while Lauren stood near the doorway, her arms crossed tightly, as if she was already preparing for a fight. I placed the old wooden box on the coffee table between us. "What's this?" Michael asked. "Your father's truth," I said softly, "and the lies that nearly destroyed it." Lauren's eyes flicked to the box immediately. I saw her jaw tighten, a flash of panic behind her carefully composed face. "Mary, I thought we agreed." "We didn't agree to anything," I cut her off. "You told me I shouldn't know the truth, but I do now, and my son deserves to know it too." Michael looked from her to me, confused. "What's going on?" I untied the twine around the letters and pulled out the envelope marked with Robert's handwriting, the one addressed to me. My hands didn't shake this time. I laid the letter flat on the table and began to read aloud. Robert's words filled the room. The story of his broken engagement to Elaine, his decision to walk away, how she had forged a marriage certificate using my name after he chose to marry me instead, and how he had hidden it all, afraid that revealing the truth would reopen old wounds or ruin the fragile peace between families. As I read, Lauren's eyes grew glassy. Michael sat frozen, his face pale, his hands clasped together. The silence that followed when I finished reading was deafening. Michael was the first to speak. "Mom, this can't be real." "It is," I said quietly, sliding the documents toward him. "I found it all in the basement. Every letter, every photograph, every lie that was buried under that house." He picked up one of the letters and scanned it quickly. "Elaine," he muttered. "Mom, that's Lauren's mother's name." Lauren's voice broke the tension. "It's true." Michael turned to her sharply. "What?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as she finally spoke. "It's true. My mother told me about him, about your dad. She said he left her for another woman. She said he ruined her life. She made me promise that if I ever got the chance, I would make things right." Michael stared at her, his expression unreadable. "Make things right? By forging a marriage certificate? By lying to my mother?" Lauren shook her head desperately. "No, I didn't forge anything. She did, years ago. I just found it after she passed away. I kept it because I thought it was proof that your father wasn't who he said he was. I thought my mother deserved justice." "Justice?" I said, my voice trembling, though not with fear this time. "You humiliated me. You made me doubt my own marriage. You made me believe my husband betrayed me when all he ever did was love and protect me." Lauren broke down, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't know the truth, I swear. My mother lied to me my entire life. I thought I was honoring her." Michael stood up, anger flickering in his eyes. "So you brought her lies into my house. You let my mother suffer for something that never even happened?" She tried to reach for him, but he stepped back. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she whispered. "But you did," I said quietly. "You let me live with a ghost of a lie." The room fell silent again. Outside, the sun was setting, its last rays slipping through the curtains, lighting up the old letters on the table. It was strange. The truth that had caused so much pain suddenly looked small, fragile, almost harmless in that fading light. After a long moment, Michael sank back into his chair, rubbing his temples. "So Dad never married her," he said slowly, as if trying to convince himself. "No," I said softly. "He loved me. He chose me. And he tried to protect us from the past. But secrets always find a way out." Lauren wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. "I'll never forgive myself for this. I should have told you everything when I found that box." "You can't change what's already done," I said, "but you can stop living in the shadow of someone else's pain. Your mother's anger doesn't have to become your legacy." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked small, not cold, not confident, just a woman broken by a truth she wasn't ready to face. Michael reached for my hand, his eyes full of guilt. "Mom, I'm so sorry I doubted you. I should have trusted you." I smiled faintly and squeezed his hand. "You were just trying to hold this family together. I understand." He turned to Lauren, his voice low. "We'll figure this out. But from now on, no more lies. No more secrets." Lauren nodded, her voice cracking. "I promise." When they left that evening, the house felt quiet again, but not in the same way as before. It wasn't the silence of loss or confusion. It was the silence that comes after truth, heavy but clean. I gathered Robert's letters, tied them neatly again, and placed them in the chest beside my wedding photo. I looked at his smiling face and whispered, "You were right, my love. The truth found me, and I still believe in you." Outside, the wind rustled the trees, carrying away the dust of years of hidden pain. For the first time in a long while, I felt light. I finally understood. The truth doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it restores what lies tried to steal. The days that followed felt quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Not the heavy, painful silence that comes after loss or confrontation, but something softer, like the air after a thunderstorm, when the world still smells like rain, but the sky begins to clear. I woke up one morning, sat by the window with my cup of coffee, and for the first time since opening that cursed box, I felt my chest loosen. The truth was no longer a weapon in someone else's hands. It belonged to me now. I spent the next few days sorting through Robert's letters again, reading each one slowly, almost reverently. There was sadness in them, yes, but also honesty, compassion, and regret. My husband had carried his own burden, the guilt of a past love he couldn't fix, the fear of hurting me with the truth. He had lived quietly, protecting me from a shadow that wasn't even his doing. And though I wished he'd told me, I understood why he didn't. Some truths, he must have thought, would only hurt the people he loved most. When Michael came by a few days later, he looked exhausted. His eyes were heavy, his voice soft. "Mom," he said, sitting down beside me. "Lauren told me everything about her mother, about how she found the box, about the lies she grew up with." I nodded quietly, waiting. "She's ashamed," he continued. "She wants to apologize to you in person." I looked down at the teacup in my hands. That's a start. That afternoon, Lauren came over. She stood at the doorway for a long time before speaking. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said softly. "I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am. My mother spent her life angry at your husband, and I grew up believing every word she said. I thought she was the one who'd been wronged, and I wanted to defend her, even after she died. But I see now that all I did was continue her pain." Her voice trembled. "You didn't deserve any of this." For a moment, I just studied her face. The same woman who had made me doubt my own memories, my own love. I should have felt angry, but I didn't. I saw a reflection of my younger self in her, a woman doing her best to protect her family, even if she was wrong. I sighed. "Lauren," I said, "when someone carries pain for too long, it becomes all they know. Your mother let it consume her, but you don't have to." Tears streamed down her cheek. "I wish I could undo it." "You can't," I said gently, "but you can choose to move forward with honesty, and you can teach your son that truth, no matter how painful, is better than silence." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. "I will." For the first time, she reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. Her grip was warm, uncertain, human. In that small gesture, something in me healed. Later that evening, after they both left, I went into my bedroom and took out the letter Robert had written me, the one that had changed everything. I sat by the window as the sun dipped below the horizon and read it one last time. "If you ever find what Elaine left behind, know this. I never loved anyone the way I loved you. You were my beginning and my end, my peace and my home. I hid the past because I couldn't bear to let it take one more moment from the life we built together. If you're reading this, I hope you remember not the lies that tried to divide us, but the truth that kept us together." The words blurred through my tears, but I smiled. That was who he was. Quiet, loyal, imperfect, but honest in his love. And that was enough. I placed the letter back in its envelope, tied the ribbon gently around the bundle of paper, and tucked them into the chest beside our wedding photograph. Then I took the fake marriage certificate, the lie that had haunted me, and tore it in half. The paper ripped cleanly down the middle, the ink smudged by my tears. I lit a small candle and watched the pieces burn in the flame. As the ashes curled and drifted upward, I whispered, "It's over now, Robert. You can rest. And so can I." The next morning, I walked through my garden, where the air smelled of wet earth and jasmine. The flowers were blooming again, small bursts of color against the soft green leaves. It struck me that life has a way of renewing itself, even after it's been buried under dust and time. The past doesn't disappear. It just settles, waiting to be understood. When Michael called later that week, his voice was lighter. "Mom," he said, "Lauren and I decided to stay in town. We're not moving anymore. We want Ethan to grow up close to you." I smiled. I'd like that. It was as if the truth had not only freed me, but brought my family closer. The walls that secrecy had built were finally gone. That night, as I looked at the photo of Robert and me on our wedding day, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about erasing what happened. It's about choosing peace over poison, about closing the door gently instead of slamming it shut. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and whispered to myself, the truth didn't destroy me. It saved me. And in that moment, I knew Robert would have been proud. So if you're still watching, take a moment to think about the secrets you've been afraid to face. Sometimes the truth you fear the most is the one that will finally set you free. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like these remind us that even after the darkest storm, peace always finds its way home.